Yeah, thank you. All right, should I wait another minute? You got enough time already. Anybody else who said they're gonna come in, or just? Go. Oh, there's two. Here, why don't we get going and then we'll, if he comes in, hopefully the next minute. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum now. So the meeting of the Finance and Admin Committee is called to order, and we have done a roll call, and Sally is keeping the roll. Anyone else comes in on Zoom? Are there any declarations of interest? Great, seeing none, will be adopting the agenda, so I have a motion. Resolved that the agenda for the September 15, 2025 Finance and Administration Advisory Committee meetings be adopted as presented. The NICG moves and Paul seconds. Are there any comments on the agenda? No amendments? All in favor? All right, the motion is carried. The agenda is adopted. So now we move on to the approval of the minutes from our last Finance and Administration Advisory Committee. So resolved that the minutes of the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee meeting on June 26, 2025 will received and approved as printed. I need someone to move. Someone to move. Jeff moves. Second by Roy. Any comments on the minutes? All in favor? Seeing hands up over there too, so the motion is carried. So now we move into the bulk of it, and we welcome Joanne Glazier to the meetings of Cornerstone. So, because now we move into pay increments and employee recognition. And Sally, over to you.
Thank you. So Kelly's just pulled out the presentation.
Speak up.
Yeah, can't hear fans going again.
Okay, so this item was brought to the executive committee for preliminary review and direction sought on what to bring forward to the finance and administration committee. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kelly. Thank you. So previously I came to the board and I had said that we have an issue within combination of how we budget for pay increments and the like, and what the language is in our employee manual. And it boils down to the fact that we have a fixed percentage approach to what we budget to allow for people to move through the pay scale for whatever their pay band is. So if your pay band runs from $20,000 to $30,000, the increments that you may be eligible for every year is based upon a budget that limits my envelope to 2% of the compensation budget. But what this means in practical terms is it can take people 11 years on average to work from the bottom of their pay band to the top of their pay band. And what it also means is that if people have exceptional years and really high performance, I can't really give them more than 2% unless I'm giving somebody else less than 2%, which makes it even longer for somebody to work their way through their pay. So it's a very difficult model to work with. And the language in the employee manual leads people to believe that they can get upwards of 4% per annum in an increase based upon good performance. And we simply cannot consistently do that. Maybe in a one-off a year or two, but not across the board, and certainly not for the vast majority of employees who actually do perform well. So you want to go to the next slide. When I last raised this just as an issue that needed to be examined, one of the key options that were discussed around the table was the potential of, oh, thank you, Kathy. That many organizations use a fixed step approach within their pay band. So if it moves, if the pay band again is from 20 to 30,000, then maybe over 4 years you would go up at $3,000 or $2,000 increments, and within 5 years, you would be at the top of your pay band, all other things being equal. The current approach we have is what I would refer to as an open pay band. So we solicited feedback from the various municipalities and CAs that we deal with here within our jurisdiction and others. And as well did some research on the pros and cons and what's being used out there. And what we concluded was, and further to discussions I had with Joanne of Cornerstones, is that each method has its pros and cons. With respect to the open pay band, our current approach, it gives management team full flexibility in terms of setting the starting wage, adjusting annual increments based upon an individual's performance. That doesn't sort of require us to defend why somebody didn't go up a full step, because the step approach tends to be quite rigid. It's a full step or no step kind of approach, whereas we're able to navigate a more nuanced approach to increases, particularly where there's inconsistent performance amongst with an employee, and also gives us the ability to recognize excellence. So it works in favor of allowing for more, also allowing for less than a full step. Now the con of that, of course, is that there's more ambiguity or uncertainty amongst employees in terms of having a sense of where their wage is going to go over time. And that's what you get from a fixed step approach. It provides certainty, and it helps to ensure that people are going up in accordance and recognition of the increased skills and knowledge they acquire as they're in the job longer. Now, when you do the math, it becomes apparent, though, that with a fixed step approach, you end up paying people more sooner. So it has an earlier budget impact on the organization, especially when an organization like MVCA, where such a huge percentage of the staff is relatively young and new in their jobs. So it would mean a significant budget impact in the near term were we to take this approach. Also, it tends to, as I alluded to, be more rigid in terms of hiring in wages and how you progress people over time. So if you could go to the next slide, Kelly. Oh, Richard's joining us. Hi, Richard. I've just begun the discussion of the first item, which is the wage increments. So as this slide shows, the orange line is our current approach and the budgetary impact of providing for a 2% budget increase in the compensation year over year to allow for people to progress through their pay band. The dashed line is what I'm recommending, that we increase that amount to 3% to provide greater flexibility and ability to give people a higher amount so they can move through the pay band. So that as you're moving people through the pay band, you're not necessarily impacting other employees by trying to recognize excellence amongst others. The narrow dashed line at the top is the financial impact if we took a fixed step approach. So you can see that you hit higher wages sooner over time just because you're trying to meet certain targets within that fixed step approach. So if you...
But that depends on how many years it's put in that open.
Yes. So
Like look at flat, not coming back.
I'll go to the next slide. And so as identified in the report, we're recommending different target number of years. So for more junior staff, where presumably the scope of responsibilities, the complexity and nature of the jobs is not perhaps as difficult to acquire. You're looking at a much shorter period of time over which to have employees reach the top of their pay band. And of course, more for the more senior positions, a longer period of time. So in answer to your comment there, definitely, how much the dollar amount goes up over time in terms of a budgetary demand is a function of how many years over which each position is targeting to reach top of band. So the graph that you saw on the previous one assumed that everybody who's in their jobs today stays in their jobs and reaches their top of band within 6 years.
Susan, Sally, I think Paul had a question.
Okay, so Sally, that doesn't really work. Richard said is correct. Once everybody's at their top of their band, then there is nobody getting bonuses above that. You're still advocating that you're going to get bonuses above that. So therefore, that number is going to be higher under that scenario than what it would be if everybody's at the top of the band. So it doesn't go like this, it comes to a level, and then what you're proposing is actually going to be higher.
So if you want to go back a slide, Kevin. So in, I think that says 2030, is that 2030? Oh,
5 years,
20,
25, 30.
So, in 2030, yes, everybody in theory would be at top of band. There would still be an ability to provide bonuses. So yes, you're correct.
Right, if there was no ability to provide bonuses, if you were stepped into a step program, then the step program will be cheaper at that point in time.
I think the bonus issue is separate from this issue.
No, but this graph is talking financial impacts, and the financial impacts are, is that at some point in time, the bonus system creates a financial impact on the municipality, on paying higher than what a step process would be. So that's fair,
Right,
correct?
yeah, okay, well, I think you need to, when you get to the bonus section,
Yeah.
you can address it. Okay.
So, all this graph is showing is the difference of moving from 2% to 3%. It doesn't address any additional bonus being beyond that 2030. So, it's not that, because this graph, under the 3% and the 2% provides for bonusing. So, I just want that to be clear, because the bonus amount, the budget amount, isn't on top of that 2% today or 3% being recommended. So, but you're right, I don't want to conflate the two. I would prefer that we treat the two things separately. So if you want to go to the next slide. So as I was mentioning, when we did the math, it was based on pretty much these assumptions of how long it would take the people in those positions today to get to the top of their band, and that's what created the budget lines. Do you want to go to the next slide? So, so the next issue is how we address bonusing and compensatory leave. So when somebody,
Yes, Richard.
So since these are two different issues, should we deal with this one first? Or how, we're gonna, what was the, maybe there's a plan. I'm just saying, we point out the two different issues. Or go through them both and then do them one at a time at the end.
Yeah, they are in the same resolution,
I know, but
right? And I understand what you're saying is that perhaps they would be separated out, but that's for the future. I think we should understand the total compensation.
okay,
Certainly from my background in the private sector, the whole thing is called compensation, right? It's a compensation strategy. And so you address salary increases and bonus merit and. Always to have, stock options and other things you could do, but it's a compensation plan, so I think you have to look at it holistically.
Okay,
And then decide on what you want,
great.
okay?
No, that's good. Just want to make sure the,
Yeah.
Just for clarification, I think probably Richard and I are looking at it from a municipal strategy, which is not the same as a corporate strategy.
Understood,
It's more of a municipal provincial strategy on how these systems work.
great, I understand that,
Okay.
and I guess the question is. That MVCA has to compete with. Both municipalities and the private sector, and I don't know, is the MVCA considered a municipal animal, or is it considered like a nonprofit private sector animal, like, or is it a combination there?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, right? But anyway, I know what you're saying, and so let's just go on and have a presentation finish on the boat.
for sure.
Yeah, okay.
So, just so it's clear on how staff are compensated today for when they put in overtime. Most staff are compensated for every hour worked, including premiums under the Employment Standard Act. They get it in the form of toil, time off in lieu. But if they have any accumulated toil unused at the end of the year, it's paid out. Management, only accrue overtime on hours worked in excess of 40 hours a week. And they can only accrue up to a maximum of 75 hours per week. So in many jurisdictions, they'll allow 1 or 2 week management leave. That's basically what this is. It's a recognition of overtime work by management up to a maximum of 75 hours per year. So that's current state.
How does that compare to our vacation? Just that we time, this was we time too, but how much vacation can you carry more deep? If you don't know, it's one.
So everybody has to get their any carryover approved by me. And I tried to limit it to 1 week. More if somebody actually has planned vacation, like if they say I'm going away for 2 weeks in February, then, I'll allow them to do that. But it's discretionary, but we do have policy that.
Don't let them carry over any overtime.
No, because the two combined were getting excessive, and our auditor a couple of years ago said, let's deal with this. And there was a time when it was a use it or lose it approach, and then we realized that was in contravention of the ESA. Can't take away basically people's earnings. So that had to stop. So that's why we paid them out. So there's not that accrued support liability a year over year on toil. We'll do it for vacation, but we won't for toil. That's why we pay it.
Okay.
Okay, so the annual bonus is only used to recognize obviously excellence, or where a person is putting an excessive amount of overtime without compensation. And it's only given to people who are at the top of their pay band. So since I've been here, generally only 2 or 3 people a year have received an annual bonus. It doesn't change their salary, so it's not indexed year over year. You have to earn it each year anew, the check separate, so to speak. And what I'm recommending is that going forward, that if I am wanting to give somebody a bonus, that I would come to the executive committee each year with who I propose to give bonuses to and why, and get feedback from the executive before proceeding. So I don't know that I have another slide. Can you just check? Yeah. I think
So may I just ask a question, because it's related to a question I think that, or comment that Paul made. So if you get to the top of your pay band, whether it's through whatever approach, the bonus is not automatically given.
Correct.
Okay, so it would have to be somehow earned, and if they were performing well, or let's say average, I mean, you have to still decide. It has to be sort of above and beyond, and it has to come to the executive, or sorry, the executive.
That's
All right, so it's not automatic. All right, I just want to understand that.
So, did you have a clarification?
Yes.
More on the graph and the scale. That scale is assuming that all staff will remain in state. You're not gonna have staff in state, so you're going to, at the end of that 5 years, there will be more staff that won't already be a ton scale. It's, that difference is still going to continue.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that piece there, because of the stepped approach is what I, in the research, was usually 4 to 5 years.
So this is risk management, case law, here 5 years from now. I said, you were wrong with that.
So that stepped approach in terms of the higher amount of the benefit increase over the 3 would continue. It would just stop. You're not gonna have everyone to operate from home.
Potentially be hiring in new people as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, there's a dynamic element that this doesn't necessarily represent. Okay. Fair enough. So where are we here?
So, the one last thing is that in terms of the approach taken by other jurisdictions. And not everybody we contacted, responded to our survey, obviously, but, interestingly, we're the only jurisdiction that we came across that has this sort of fixed, envelope approach to putting people through the pay bands, in that we allocate 2% of the compensation budget to that. I thought that was an interesting finding. I believe in DNE, it's assumed that everybody's at top of band and that is the compensation budget. But most of the municipalities and CAs that responded to our survey, they sort of estimate where people are going to be in their pay band each year, and that's how they budget. So we're unique in taking a fixed percentage approach. I'm not adverse to that. I just think we need to create a bit bigger envelope so I can move people through their pay bands at a more competitive pace. 11 years to get from bottom of band to top of band is not good. I think having a varied approach that says more junior positions, I'll call them, in the organization should be able to reach top band sooner than a more senior position. I think that's reasonable and consistent with industry practice. I just wanted to remind people that Joan Glazer's on the phone, and she helped provide feedback to staff as we were working on this, and so is available to answer any questions people have as well.
All right, I just want to make one point before we come to you, Paul, and that is that there's something that we don't know. We did have a discussion of this at the executive committee meeting a few weeks ago. And at that meeting were Roy as our chair, and Paul was there as the vice chair. I was there representing as chair of this committee, and Ben Holmes was recommending the policy priorities committee. So there was a discussion among some of the, like 3 of the members who were in this meeting today. And I believe that what you see before you was representative of, at that time, at least most of the members of that group of 4, what they thought should be proposed or at least evaluated by the Finance and Administration Committee. And I'm just saying that they felt that it should be put forward to this committee for discussion. So with that, Paul? You're up.
Why would it go through 3 committees then?
That was a
You have
discussion.
the finance committee.
Well, can I?
Sure, but why would it
That
go
would
to the
be
executive?
Roy, you heard the one who called the executive committee for
I
that?
did, and if I recall, it was just, I asked at the time, please respond to the finance committee for next
Right.
review, and at that time, you all agreed that it should come to this.
Right.
I don't think I directed it to come to this meeting.
No,
No,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm asking-
The executive committee first.
Why would it
Yes,
go to the
so-
executive?
Why didn't exactly, it was planned already on, because that's the direction of the board meeting way back in May or April,
December.
December, there you go. So I called the meeting, for the end of the summer.
Okay, that's why I did,
We gave direction to Sally to come up with this.
yeah. I don't know what to say.
Here, because I don't have any recollections.
Waste your time.
It did, just requested that it come to
Yes.
that was committee. For vetting before, for approval before it came to the finance committee. In case the executive committee says no.
Right, I think it was that December one, I just want to check to see if I was.
It would have been our only meeting in December.
Okay.
Right, so with that, I just wanted to provide that background to this meeting and just so that some of us have seen this before, so Paul.
Okay, so just for the record, I just said that at the executive committee, I don't agree.
Which one, there's two presented,
Hmm?
there's two presented approaches plus the bonus.
Right, so the approach that has been presented. I don't agree with the various factors. There's an argument of the stepped approach that it doesn't work, step, and we can't do flexibility, but there is flexibility in the step approach. You can go for double merits. Which is quite possible. You could also, doesn't mean you have to hire somebody in the bottom. People can still negotiate as to what level they can be. The only thing that happens is when you reach the top, you're at the top. Okay? So it's very easy for the organization to calculate what the budget is for the finances for any given year by looking and knowing where people are within the step. Knowing that they may want to come for a double merit increase for somebody, okay, on that particular thing to move them through. And it gets people through the program. And it provides financial assurance. So we don't have as municipalities this extra 3% coming onto a budget. Okay, we know exactly what's coming. Maybe 3% because of people moving through the steps, but it may not be. It's not a given. I don't agree with the potential, and you mentioned the word ambiguity. So if a person is the person that cuts the grass, okay, and they do a fabulous job cutting the grass, and they do all the trimming and everything else, that's not going to be observed as much as somebody at a higher level that's doing something else. And they may be fabulous at their job. They're going to be bored in that process, okay? Because it's never going to get to you, Sally, because it's going to be the manager says, "Oh, you know, George is wonderful." I've been in processes where they've had bonuses. They provide all sorts of staff conflict where people look and say, why is this person getting a bonus year after year after year? Oh, well, that's because that's the, in our case, well, that's the ADM's impact. So they're gonna get a bonus every year, okay? I just feel that it sets up antagonism between people. You can get a situation where it gets bad enough, one person is trying to torpedo another person so that they get the bonus and the other person doesn't get the bonus. It can cause all sorts of issues. Whereas if it's a fixed scale, a fixed step system, you're fine. Everybody knows going in. And yes, it may have that problem. You say, well, if we can't reward so and so more, they're going to go somewhere else. Bottom line is, if they're already doing that, they're already in.
Yeah.
Okay. And that
Everybody's flexible.
Yeah.
There we.
really.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's it. That's all I'm going to say about this process. I do not support this, and I will not support it all the way through.
Just a question, how many total staff do we have, and how many people is this going to affect?
33. 33.
And this is all members, excluding
Yes.
senior staff, or is this everyone?
Everyone, all employees.
Okay, 33.
Right,
This one here shows you.
Yeah, I didn't know the numbers going.
Richard knows, yeah, Richard?
Yeah, I'm afraid I agree with Paul. The only thing I wanted to point out is that Paul said it. First of all, you don't have, I think it's more transparent. And it's more everybody, there's no whispering or anything, who got a bonus, who didn't. I think it's just, here it is, here's the grid. I would make it over 8 years. And I'd treat everybody the same. It doesn't mean that the base, I don't know how we're a step, like if we're saying step 6 or 7 is the top, like the base has got to be, what the starting point has got to be legitimate. It can't be below market value. But as far as bonus saying, like, we certainly do not have that word even, but what I would suggest is that staff gets the ability, if they want to give more than one step to a employee that's done very well, that goes back to the board. And this year, I'm recommending Sally to get two steps on her pay grade to get, higher up quicker. The other thing I want to point out that maybe I'm sure we all realize, but even if you're at the top of your pay grid, and you're step 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it is, if we approve a 2.5% increase, you're getting a 2.5% increase.
The cost of living is like.
Yeah, you're getting the cost of living anyway. So you're still getting, if you're at the top, you're still getting a raise. It's just, I know in our pay grid, it's the steps are probably like 2%. So basically, if we give 2%, it's like getting 2 steps. It's a whole pay grid goes. The whole pay grid goes up, not just your step.
Right.
Goes up by that if it's 2.5% cost of living. So anyway, I think it's simpler. This is really complicated. It's more transparent, and it still has that flexibility to increase somebody's for doing a good job. You can increase them quicker. If they're doing the other thing that I know we've done, when it gets to the top of the pay grid, and if it's the same person that's been there for 6, 7 years to get to the top of the pay grade, 10 to 1, the job they're doing is different than when they started. So that we take a look at it, and yeah, Sally is doing payroll plus I don't something else. Something because she's got so good at her job, she's doing something else. So now we can increase the steps because it's a different job.
All right, I think I need to go to Councillor Curry next, and because I think we'd like to hear from her, and then we can come back around. Okay, so Councillor Curry.
Thank you. I think maybe the perception is that we're trying to, make the perfect system. I think when you have your executive director saying, we have a problem here, Houston, and we're trying to figure out how to fix it, I think you have to listen, because we have in every department at the city, everywhere we go, we have a war for talent, and people leave right, left, and center for this very reason. Like, we can't keep people. They're going to the federal government, they're going to the private sector. The private sector then is warring has a war for talent. Like, it's just everywhere. And I just think the more flexibility you can have, the better as an executive director, to keep your best people and incentivize people to stay. That is a bigger problem, I think, than, worrying that people might be upset that somebody else got a little bit more. I don't think you can solve the human problems with systems like this. No matter what, you're going to have human problems. People are going to say, well, why is that person making more money? Well, yeah, that's because they have their own individual psychological challenges. You're not going to solve that with this. This is just going to create more flexibility that will enable Sally and their managers to keep people, or Sally to keep the managers she can keep. Like, I think that the more flexibility you have, the better. And transparent or not, like, people talking about how much money they got or how much bonus they got, like, that's their problem. Like, the transparency is, we have this system. Here it is. Here's how it works. If you don't like it, then that's your own personal work ethic issue. Solve your problems with your work ethic or your manager. This, to me, if we don't do it, goes to sort of let's make sure everybody gets the same thing, and that we don't really want to reward anybody. And if we don't, we won't be able to keep people. So I agree there's some flexibility. I don't think there's enough given the current situation we have to try to keep people. But anyway, so I'll be supporting the recommendation.
All right, before we go to you, Richard, I think this is a good lead into a comment from Joanne about the marketplace. So
How many people have we had to leave?
can we come back to that though?
What?
No, we'll come back to it, because I think we need to hear about. Come back to the marketplace and why you were recommending the more rapid movement to the lower bands and that sort of thing. So Joanne, can you give us a few comments? I remember you did the executive committee. It was very interesting. And you need to unmute.
Find my microphone. Thanks, Janet. So picking up on some of the comments that have been made with respect to the market. So yes, we work with a number of municipal and private sector organizations, and war for talent. It's an appropriate term where we see folks bouncing from the public sector to the private sector and back, and that's where this flexible approach, which could be more fiscally responsible as well, might be helpful. So picking up on the flexibility, I might say, I'll come and work for you for this amount of money. You'll be able to find that money more quickly. If my performance supports my salary, you'll be able to move me along the grid. We know what the end result is at the end of the day. You'll be able to move me along more quickly in the event that my performance warrants it. On the flip side, if my performance isn't there, then you're not going to be giving me the same increase. You're going to be giving the person that's sitting next to me that is working very hard and should be getting a larger increase. So yes, so from an internal equity perspective, recognizing individual performance, as well as how do we attract folks and get them to want to come and sustain that performance, that's where this approach might be more helpful.
All right, thank you. So now I have Richard and then Paul and then Jeannie. So Richard?
Yeah, I just disagree. And I just can't disagree enough. But anyway, it's fine. I'll go with whatever the group says. But first of all, I don't think we have that many people leaving. I don't know where they would go, these type of jobs. And they're all replaceable. And I think that it's just too complicated a system and too much flexibility for that. It's who you like and who you don't like. That's what it comes down to. The other way, it's that. And I guess the main point I want to make, though, out of the comments, just for obviously it was wrong. This is the new system. This is if we go either one of these, it's a completely new system, which is better than what we have now. Because for years, municipalities complained about the way it has been because there was no logic as far as I was concerned. But anyway, I think it should be a pay grid, straightforward, and everybody knows what they spend.
All right, so Sally would like to respond, I think, to one of your comments, and again, I'm going to call out and then meeting. So, Sally.
So though I don't have the exact number, I can tell you that of the original staff that were here when I joined in 2019, 4 remain.
And
So
how many left volunteer?
all except,
And how many retired?
well, so 4.
What's that?
4. Voluntary.
I keep thinking.
Let me just count. Let me take that one through. So Ross, Matt, the most recent one was, okay, so.
Gordon?
Was Joan?
Yeah, but Joan was retired before I replaced her before I even got hired. I don't include my predecessor or Joan because.
Okay, fair enough. So then we heard of John Price. Anyway,
Okay, so maybe 7.
yeah, no, sorry, yeah, so, yeah, but we think you've had issues hiring
Yes.
talent in certain areas because there is, I believe, and we mentioned this at many meetings, competition for this talent, particularly among municipalities and consulting companies.
Exactly.
And we have raised the salaries. So.
Yes, and as I recall, again, there have been cases where we have hired in, I believe at a higher rate than the pay rate because of the market conditions, that those were approved by the board.
So,
Yes,
if I may.
Yeah.
So as an example, we had one employee who we hired in at a very competitive rate, we stopped. And then a year later, he was gone because he found a higher price back at the employer he came from. So when we talk about these people moving around to find the better wages, it's real. And especially within, I'll say, the engineering and previously the planning, we couldn't get a planner. We ended up hiring people straight out of school with 0 experience, as I know some of you have as well, because there was not a planner to have. So it's an extremely competitive market, and we have had to, on 3 occasions that come to mind, hired somebody who we didn't think would fit the bill, but was in the engineering department, simply to have somebody who we could start to train up. Because they coming in the door, they just did not have the specialty or the expertise we needed, but. So it means having to invest that much more in those people. So when those people leave, you're looking at having to do that all over.
Right, so now, Paul,
Okay, so, we have allowed you to repeat that off. Okay, we have allowed you to bring people in and you don't have to start with personal, talked about that. Once they get to the top of the level, the fact that you're throwing all this money after every year is not going to necessarily mean that, just full stop on that idea. Okay, you can bring them in off grid and come back to the board and say, okay, I need to hire X, Y, Z, and I need to pay them $1,000 more a year than what their level is because we can't get that. And I don't think. Okay, second thing, I take issue with the consultants saying that, you know, this is a better system. But the bottom line is. It's not transparent. It's not good for staff. It's not even good for management. And I guess the other question I would have is, how much does this 3% actually work out to in dollar value? On a yearly basis
yeah,
for this bonus.
it was actually, yeah, it's in the, actually, yeah, it's in
It's in the report. but
Yeah,
it's policy.
And that's not wrong, that's total, everything.
And I
Well, it's
believe,
3% of your salary.
but you said, when we asked that question at the executive committee, you said that it also was inclusive of. The total compensation package, that is also salary, based on salary.
Yes, most of them, a number of those don't change.
Right, I understand, but I'm just saying, it's the ones that are. All right, so I just want to know about Jeannie. And then,
Okay, there are some of the questions and a couple of comments. First of all, the question is, how often are we looking at this pay grid? Like, that is being revised, so we went through this at my municipality, we're a little different because we're unionized, but. We looked at the pay grid and pay equity, so how often are we looking at the grid itself?
We've done it once and comprehensive, since I've been here, and that just happened within the past year, I can't tell you.
So when was the last time you did years difference?
So I would say once every 5 to 10 years.
But-
I don't know, Joanne might have a more accurate number.
But the system, we're talking about changing the system, we've never looked at changing the system.
Yeah, but I was more curious to know how often the pay grid is being looked at, because,
We don't have people.
well, your minimum maximum. That's,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to find out. The second thing is, people naturally move on, so we've had this discussion in our hiring committees for different positions in our township. And Leonard Islands is known for a revolving door. We have had an extraordinary amount of people that have come through our door that leave for whatever reason. But there is a certain percentage of the workforce that will leave naturally. I think sometimes in your example that you used about one person you hired at a rate and then, you know, you thought you were doing well and they left anyways and went back to their old employer. So sometimes it can be a tactic. You know what, I'm just gonna see what I can get here, you know what, no, they'll miss me and then I'll work here and then they go back. So there can be games played on the people that you're hoping to keep. So, and then the last point was, you go through cycles in talent. And we went through this with, we couldn't get a planner, you have alluded to it. Planning positions were like hen's feet. You found a planner, you grab them, you give them whatever you want, because you're gonna get them. So there is a natural cycle to all positions. So to hold out that you wanna keep, I understand, you wanna keep continuity and legacy and history with having employees stay, but sometimes it's not possible, even through all your best efforts, it's just not possible. People, the market dictates, and we, to Kathy's comment. Kathy's looking at it, I know I'm reading her mind, but she's coming from, a different dynamic than what we are here. And sometimes I think you gotta compare apples to apples. So when you're talking about a conservation authority with 33 members, as opposed to a city of Ottawa with, yeah, literally thousands of members, I think there is a difference, and an approach should be not necessarily the same. So this is all relatively new to me. I just think there's no guarantee, there's no guarantee of keeping people. You could give them, you could be as forthcoming and give them all the opportunities and all the money and bonus to the merits. And some people just leave.
All right, thank you, Jeannie. So Roy?
I just want to break this down in two parts here, so the 1% increase from 2 to 3. That is, and I'm reading the report right, and what you're saying, Sally. There are some employees that are taking 10, 11 years to get to the top of their pay, well, that's unacceptable. And any small or large, that's completely unacceptable. I would agree, right? So the 3% makes total sense to me. Everywhere I work, private sector and public sector, we've had bonus system. So that's not new to me. I think it's important to have in an organization like this. And just one comment, when people say everybody can be replaced, yes, that is true. But then start putting in the cost of replacing that person. Retraining someone costs more money than maybe the bonus. You have to think about that. I know there's soft costs, but it's a fact. That's all I have to say, and I'll be supporting this too.
All right, so, I then want to know if there are any more comments before we move on to the resolution. Well, can still be debated at the board, because I believe that although there is a recommendation in the resolution, the discussion will be held undoubtedly with the same vigor at the board. So what we're simply doing is saying the finance and administration putting forward the resolution as it stands. So are there any more comments before we move to the resolution?
And what is resolution? Sort of.
I'm sorry?
What is the resolution?
All right, I'll read the resolution. All right, here we go. The resolution is that the MVCA's Finance and Administration Advisory Committee recommend that the Board of Directors approve proposed amendments to the MVCA Employee Manual regarding pay increments and employee recognition bonuses, and a proposed 1% increase to the pay increment annual budget envelope from 2% to 3% to allow for achievement of the recommended targets. So that's what we would be putting forward with, I would presume, the same report for discussion at the board. So I'm simply asking, I guess I'll ask Kirby to move in a second, so that, and then I'll ask for final discussion. So I need someone to move.
I'll move.
So I have movement from Roy, second by Kathy. Is there any more discussion on this resolution? Richard?
So what's changing in that? If there's a quick answer from what we're doing now, except for the percentage.
So the language in the employee manual, if people have access, is on page 17, 18 of the agenda. So the key change is that in the existing employee manual, it says that people are entitled to, if they exceed expectations, to an increase of up to 8%. And
Alright,
that's
yeah.
never been affordable within this organization. You would have to be not giving other people anything to be able to afford to give somebody 8%. So at minimum, we have to eliminate that false expectation created within the employee manual. And replace that instead with the table that sets out the number of years you as an employee can expect to take to get to top of grid based upon the position. So it's, instead of saying a percentage increase, it's saying within this number of years, assuming good performance, you should be able to achieve top of grid.
All right, is there any more questions or discussion before we move to the vote? Yes, Paul.
Madam Chair, I request a
Recorded vote.
recorded.
All right, we have a recorded vote. All right, so all those in favor of the resolution?
In favor.
Yeah, first, I'm sorry, thank you very much. So first I will start with Rich, I'll start with, sorry, Jeff, do you have a comment or are you just?
He's leaving.
Oh, leaving, I'm sorry. All right, so I'll ask you for your vote first.
I support it.
All right, so that he just supports. All right, so I'll just move around the circle on the screen first. So Councillor Curry.
I support it.
All right, Councillor Hughley.
I support it.
Councillor Suter. We need your muted. Support it or against, which, could you please let us know? We can't hear you, so could you put up a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Well, all right, so he's abstaining, I'm abstaining. All right, so Richard,
Opposed.
opposed, Jeannie,
I'm opposed as well.
opposed, Roy,
I'm for it.
you're for it, and Paul. And that's opposed. All right, so is it, how are we doing?
Do you vote, Janet?
I can vote if I have to break it.
Well, it's not.
No, we don't.
For and support,
So we have 4 in support and 3 against, and 1 abstain.
no, 3 against.
Yes, so the motion is carried. All right, so it's a very good discussion. No, I think it's a very good discussion, and I'm still have so many discussion at the board meeting.
Question,
Yes,
do you consider an abstaining vote a no vote? Because if you do, then we have a tie, and you wouldn't have to vote.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yes.
No,
I got
that
you.
votes is a no.
So no.
Yeah, so Janet does have to vote.
I'll vote just in case, depending on the rules, so I vote in favor. All right, you can record that I voted. All right,
So,
yes,
so this still has to come to the board.
yes.
Could we have that presentation, because this is sort of complicated. Could we have it down to 2 options, the 2, like, basically. There's a grid, with, I don't care, 6 years, whatever you want to put. With showing a grid, and then the recommendation from the board is the second option, like, there's 2 options, I think, and I think they should be both shown.
Is that
It's all in here, it's just
yeah,
pulling it together and putting it
So that's
straightforward. I like the idea, like but showing our the changes to the present policies when we're, that's a good thing to look forward to.
I think I'm just, sorry, unclear on, so I did put the 2 options up there in one of the slides. What additional information were you wanting?
Well, I don't think he had what I want is a chart showing going by,
what we're doing and what we
a
want.
grid, pay grid. There's no pay grid shown, right?
Okay, so you want us to come up with a theoretical grid? Like showing the step approaches within each? as
Just
opposed to-
take your increase and divide it by 6,
Okay,
right?
no, I think
Or-
I understand it.
I think the other thing.
Is that not what?
Yeah, so just if are you able to pull up that slide with the targets?
need to move on to the next. I know we've already voted, we're just talking about how to present it to the board, because maybe is it.
I just wanted to be
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, so you wanna have this with the,
Yeah, so instead of it saying 4 to 5 years, you would like me to show the actual wage. Band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4, band 5 for each of these,
Yeah, that's great.
or do that
And the,
for each of them.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay, so let's move on then to the next item, which is the proposed. 2026 budget assumptions and expense salary, and you're gonna do it right, and not Stacy.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, so this time of year, we and all CAs across the province are trying to confirm budget direction, which largely means confirming with the board what the levy increase will be. So this happens every year, this time of year, September, October, then based upon that, we come back to the finance committee in November. We'll take a look at the budget in December. We send it out to all your municipalities for review, and I was to meeting requests from the municipalities if any are requested, and consolidate any comments received and come back to board approval in February. And then you might recall that a couple of years ago, that we made the decision to review the financial statements, later in the spring at the AGM. So that's now the last step in what I would consider the full annual budget cycle. So, you want to go to the next slide, please? So the key steps are, we identify what the pressures are, either known or unknown, and then we come to you with a proposal for the levy increase. Then we go back and look at all other revenues and develop the budget based upon that. So if you go to the next slide, the key things that we're always looking at this time are, what's the assumption regarding the rate of growth within our community, our jurisdiction? What is the operating budget increase going to look like, and are there any particular increases that we need to address, or pressures we need to address? And then we always deal with capital separate from operating. So I'm going to walk through each of these. So both the growth rate that we're recommending, which is 1.6%, and below, where you see under operating, the recommended amount is 327.5. Every year, we tend to follow what the city of Ottawa does, and council just recently approved the direction of the 3.75, because it does represent 90% of our levy, and the 3 CAs operating within the jurisdiction of the city of Ottawa try to be lockstep on this in their budget ask of the city. So that's fundamentally the rationale for the 1.6 and the 3.75. Stacey has done a call around to many of the municipalities. Only one municipality other in our jurisdiction has already established what its assumptions are going to be for growth and operating. So there wasn't a whole lot else for us to go on at this stage. That was Central Frontenac, who's already given its direction on this. The only pressure on the operating budget side of things and on the levy is the final installment of the transfer of what we've been drawing down from the operating reserve since 2021, when I came forward to the board with a workforce plan. The purpose of the workforce plan was to address a number of workforce issues that were going to require an upfront expenditure of in excess of $200,000. And it was agreed that we would phase those costs onto the levy, and that in the interim years that those operating costs would be paid by the operating reserve. So the final installment to be transferred onto the levy in 2026 is at $64,000. Then that is net of the 1 FTE that I cut in 2025 to which had been allocated as a result of that workforce plan, and quite frankly, I determined I no longer need it. So you gave it to me, and I've given it back, and the net result is that there's still 64,000 to be put onto the levy. The last piece is the capital levy, and you may recall when we tabled the updated 10-year capital plan in December of last year, that we also tabled this schedule of levy increases. And the schedule indicates the percentage year-over-year increases that were being recommended to allow us to afford that 10-year capital plan. So the budget that or budget envelope for the levy that you have in front of you is stating that 8.5% that had been tabled back in December. If you want to go to the next slide. Yes, Richard.
The 1.6 assessment growth, that's from the city of Ottawa. So is that a real number, or is that what they think it's going to be, or like that's real assessment growth? That's what we're talking about.
Actually, I don't know if either of the councillors online have a clear answer on that. Can I defer to one of you if you know definitively? So unfortunately, I can't tell you. We can certainly look into that to know for certain.
I know Larry County would be one. This year, we've already been told it's not going to be one. And the growth slowed right down, but maybe the city, if it is 1.6.
Sorry, can we just ask that question one more time?
I wondered if the 1.6 growth in assessment is a real number that.
It is.
That,
Sorry, I thought that's what you were asking. So I had just sent, honestly, a half hour ago texted our CFO at the city of Ottawa, who said that our growth number, and it is an estimate, but it is 1.6. That's what we're going with. And he always gives us the most conservative estimate so that, so I don't want to say it's real, but it's as real as it can be. We don't expect it to go down. If anything, it would potentially go up. The final number isn't confirmed until December, he's told me. So we go with what is our very, very best guess based on the preliminary estimates we've been given every month getting up to that. So 1.6 is a good number to go with.
Go ahead.
So if you want to go to the next slide. So the second piece of this report deals with how much to increase the salary grid by that cost of living allowance that the board approves each year. So in July, the CPI was 1.7. We're recommending 2.5 increase because if you look at this graph here, there have been 3 years where the board approved a less than CPI at the time. So the cumulative impact of those less than CPI increases is 5.2%. So instead of a 1.7% increase to salary grid, we're recommending a 2.5, which helps to move us along to mitigating that 5.2 differential. So I don't have anything more than that. I'm happy to address any questions. On page 22 of the agenda package is the increase that each of the municipalities can expect. And it's always important to remember, as highlighted in that final column, some of the delta is a function of what we're proposing in terms of increases, but it's also a function of how your relative assessment values have changed amongst the 11 municipalities.
And that allocation comes from the province?
Correct.
Okay.
what's it based on?
We get an email from the province saying, here's the allocation. That's what it's based on. Right.
Alright, are there any comments or questions on what has been proposed? Is this what we're going to the board for a single? Not seeing anything online, I'm not seeing anything here, so I will read you the resolution. Or recommendation that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee recommend that the Board of Directors direct staff to develop the 2026 budget and review the document in accordance with the following parameters: an increase of 2.75% plus assessment growth with the growth to the operating levy, an increase of 8.5% plus assessment growth to the capital levy, an assumed assessment growth rate of 1.6%, cost of living increase with 2025 pay scale of 2.5%, and a transfer of $64,663 onto the municipal levy for workforce plan adjustments. I need someone to move. Mr. Roy moves, Paul seconds. Any more comments? Yes,
So the 1.6, sure. But the 1.6. If that doesn't come through, so 1.6 is the average of the whole watershed.
So
Like if Bonner County was 1 and the city was 1.6, does our assessment only go up by 1? Or are you putting 1.6 even though we don't have the growth? I guess that's the question.
So what we're defining here is a budget envelope.
Right.
So the envelope goes up by 1.6, and then the envelope is shared amongst the 11 municipalities based upon your assessments. Your percentage assessment. So regardless of whether you're the city of Ottawa at 1.6 growth or your North Frontenac at something less than that to affect with. Regardless of what your actual growth is, this is the envelope. But what I'm hearing is that the 1.6 is still, it's a best estimate for this time for the purpose of budget development.
For the city of Ottawa.
If things change significantly, between now and when we table the budget in November.
So somebody explain to me how So when we're doing your taxes, that let's say it is 1.6. It's just it's the revenue that's there. And it's what's ever there. So we're assessing the municipalities. Why are we presuming a number? And it's just, I'm sure I just don't understand that.
So it's no different than what the municipal treasurer is doing for your budget planning. They assume a certain rate of growth and they work that into their budget. That's all. We're doing the same, that you are serving a growing population with growing needs. And you need to build that into your budgeting process, or you'll always.
No, we don't do. That's a number that comes to us in December. And then you can subtract that off the budget, but it's an actual number. If you're telling us it's 1.6, and it only comes in at 1, then we're paying another 0.5% difference. Like if our growth
And I can say-
comes in less, and
Yeah, I just want to say that we've been doing it this way for decades. And I'm gonna come to Councillor Curry in a minute, and I would, given the time, and we might have some time constraints.
okay, I'll ask our attorney.
Why don't you ask your treasurer and have a conversation with Sally online, because basically this assessment has been done this way for decades. The city of Ottawa pays and contributes 90% into the operating budget, and so generally has been the one that we base the levies on. So anyway, so Councillor Curry.
Yeah, I guess I would say a couple of years ago, I had a very similar concern. And when I went down to speak to our CFO, he said, yeah, the reality is though that the growth is new property taxpayers, right? And those are all registered and they have, what's the occupation permits? Like they're all really done. So it's not a guess. It's just that it often is higher. So they give it's 1.6. It usually is a little bit higher, but we're going to go with 1.6 for now. We've never, in the history of my experience and what he told me, never seen it come in at 1 or something when they've said 1.6, because the 1.6 is already guaranteed. It's just that they would never want to go higher than that because they can't guess past 1.6 is sort of it. And we have had it go up higher, and it has been. Then we have to reallocate the extra funds that we have. But anyway, that comes from the chief financial officer at the city of Ottawa. So I don't think there is real concern to be, real need to be concerned. So I would say 1.6 is pretty safe.
Right, so we've had the motion to move. Are we ready to vote? All in favor? All right, I think yes, motion is carried. Thank you. All right, so now we're on to the purchasing policy update. And that is a report by Stacy.
So back in June, we reviewed the reserve policy and there was a removal of some of the updates that we proposed at that time. And this committee directed us to review it and come back with further updates or suggestions. We did a bunch of research over the summer. And part of that is that the indication is it's not the reserve policy that we need to further update, it's we need to address some issues in our purchase policy. A number of CAs that I spoke to have an emergency purchase policy within their purchasing policy, and we do not have that. So we're proposing to have some updates to our policy to improve it, include board oversight, but also some improved operational flexibility. So the updates, which actually start on page 28 of your agenda package, and it's in strikeout mode, you'll see clearly what the updates we're proposing. They're adding a definition for reallocation of direct expenses. So for operating, being able to move within the budget envelope, and on capital, to potentially adjust some timing on projects within the approved 10-year capital plan. The key was splitting where it was previously just the purchase limits and authorizations into 3 areas. planned approved spending, unbudgeted expenditures and budget reallocations, and emergency purchases. So within the plan section, we were proposing to remove the clauses that were currently in there that specify conditions around if an expenditure was not in the approved budget. We're proposing to add a section for unbudgeted and reallocation, still within the overall budget envelope. If the amount is, of course, we're suggesting 3 tiers, that if the amount is less than 5K, it's a treasurer approval. If it's between 5 and 25K, the GM can approve the reallocation being budgeted. And if it's between 25 and 50, it would need to be the GM and either the chair or vice chair. If it's over 50, it needs to go to board approval. And this again is more, we're not looking at spending more, we're moving money around within the budget. And then we're looking to add an emergency purchase section to address the unplanned events that are of urgent nature. Could be imminent or actual danger to life, health, public safety, potential failure of a dam or a serious issue there, or imminent or actual danger to MVCA. The generator went, keep, etc. If it's less than 25K, we're suggesting it's the GM or designate that could approve it. If it's over 25K, it would be the chair or vice chair, and both would require detailed documentation of why it's urgent need to be dealt with. And if it's over 25K, it would have to be reported at the next board meeting. I feel this would help address those issues we talked about.
Let me just ask for clarification,
Yes.
Stacy, because I thought you said when we're looking at unbudgeted expenditures and budget reallocations, yeah, this was something within the budget,
Yes,
but this says unbudgeted expenditure. So
it
doesn't
may be
that,
something we had planned to do,
right,
that we're adding, but then in essence, we're taking money from somewhere else within the overall operating budget.
okay, is that? Okay, yes, it does, thank you. Right, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Richard?
Yeah, I think that's great. That's what we asked for. The only thing, and most emergency ones. Does it say that we do away with, and I think it should say. That we do away with that, like we must have a procurement policy where we say you have to have 2 or 3 prices or something like that. Does that emergency thing deal with that too, which it should, because if it's an emergency, you don't want to be.
We have that it's required, but if you weren't, you'd have to document it. And I think documenting the fact that it was an emergency would.
Yeah,
But we can add a clause.
okay, just want to make sure that. It's open up to be able to use them.
Right. Are there any other comments or questions? Right,
For the emergency, why did you pick 25,000? It's not standard from other.
It was within the range of what other CAs had and percentage of budget.
all right, so this is responsive to the comments that came out of the June Finance and Admin Committee, so thank you for doing that, and I will read the resolution. So, resolved that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee had recommended the Board of Directors approve amendment of the purchasing policy as set out in report number 3515/25. We need someone to move. So Jeannie moves, need someone to second. Roy seconds. All in favor? All right, motion is carried. 2 hands. All right. We're getting the hang of the Zoom, but after 3 or 4 years, it's about, all right, so the fee updates, we had a report from Stacy on the fees.
So we're looking actually at the 2026 fees. Primarily the corporate and our category 3 programs to give time for getting it out there. And we're already starting to book some things, so we can have a rate that we can quote. I applied the 5.35%, which is the combination of 3.75 and the 1.6. We're suggesting for the levy to the fees. Did it in detail and then we rounded up or down so that it's nice round numbers. But not the CA site fee, daily use fee. We increased that a couple of years ago from 6 to 7. And staff have indicated if we were to look at increasing it again, there'd be some public pushback. So we were looking to leave that at the $7 for now. This doesn't deal with the regulatory fees, planning and permits. Staff and the local CAs feel there's likely going to be a extension of the fee freeze. So we're going to wait and bring this back if where we're at, hopefully in November. But I wanted to get these dealt with now. But there's all the other conditions that we agreed to over the summer and last year, they're still there.
All right, any comments or questions on the fees proposed for 2026? All right, seeing none, I'll read the resolution. Resolved that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee recommend that the Board of Directors approve the 2026 update of Schedules D through G of MVCA's fee schedule as set out in this report. Posting of the new fees in accordance with MVCA's fee policy, and that the new fees take effect on January 1st, 2026, pending no major concerns regarding the proposed changes. And someone to move. Paul moves. Roy seconds, or sorry, let's do Barry Lou seconds. All in favor? Okay, hands up, yes, the motion is carried. So we have a final, I think, report for information from Stacy on our investment updates.
I wanted to give an update at this time. It's not probably what normally won't be the schedule, but we're 3 months in and it was new, so wanted to let you know how it's going. In June, we finally got the accounts all set up and the money transferred in June 3rd to one investment. And so you have the initial investment and between all of the different accounts. The way I've allocated between operating restricted and TAP 2 and 3, that 25, 61, and 5% is what the balances were at December 31st as a percentage. Particularly the high investment savings account is actually one account altogether. All total, the increase to the end of September is up 27,553, which is a combined rate of return of roughly 3.65%. Comparing that to a 3-month GIC, which was 2.55, we're doing well. The bonds aren't doing as well. The Canadian equity over the summer did amazing. So longer term, that may be a bit more of a place to look, but as we do the operating, the 10-year capital plan and look further out.
Past performance is no.
We kept it a very minimal.
All right, are there any questions on this?
Very good.
Okay, so we're good, yeah, so, great.
You might, sorry, when I will be planning that this is part of it quarterly. Moving forward.
Great. Sounds good. All right, so we're now at the end of the meeting, unless there are any more comments and questions. I am going to read the resolution. Resolved that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee be adjourned. Someone moved, so Jeannie moves, Roy seconds. All in favor? Motion is carried. Great, thank you very much, everybody. It's a nice day, although I would want some rain during that. We're rain, yes? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alan. It's happening.
Staying work, yes or no, depends on your source.
Which means